Hey guys, this is Pastor Zac. Welcome to another edition of Porch Talk. We are so thankful that you have decided to join us today, and I am really pumped up about this week's guest, and we're going to have a lot of fun. This is Mr. Brian Rice, Reverend Brian Rice. We are so thankful for him. He is our children's minister here at Enon. But beyond that, he has been a friend of mine for many years. And Brian, man, so thankful for you and for getting to have you come and hang out with us today. I'm going to be honest with you. So this is a little bit outside of Brian's comfort zone.
Just a little.
Yeah. but it's better than getting you in front of people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Big crowd.
Yeah.
He's great in front of kids. If I ever ask him to lead in prayer on Sunday night or something, he has to pump himself up for a couple of days. So, but
it's a tough one.
Yeah. But hey, man, he is absolutely just doing an incredible job in children's ministry here at Enon, and I love all of our volunteers. We have such incredible volunteers here in our church family. But, you know, part of having good volunteers and having good children's ministry is it really does kind of start at the top. And I'm so thankful for you. And honestly, you know, traditionally, children's ministry in Baptist churches is where all the women go to serve. Yeah. And that's suffered. You know, churches have suffered. Young boys, you know, have suffered for that because they don't get to see, you know, godly men engage in children's ministry. And Enon's always had a lot of men who were willing to do that. But I would say it's one of the things that, man, you stepping into this role has been great because you've been able to recruit not only some incredible godly women, and I don't disparage that at all, but our volunteer numbers are pretty even now as far as men serving and women serving. And again, you've done a great job of recruiting leaders in that area. So, hey, man, thankful to have you.
Well, appreciate you. I'm excitingly nervous about today, but I think we can have some fun, tell some old stories about how we met. And But first, just let me say, man, it's been a blessing to be at Enon for the last 13 years. But most importantly, the last 3 years of just being able to serve and alongside you and all the other great staff we have. When you say we have the best staff in the world, it's the best church staff I've ever worked for. Yeah. So it's the only one, but it is the absolute best staff I've ever worked with. I enjoy it, and from what you say about the men serving, I'm so thankful for all the men that have stepped up and shown kids, boys, how important it is to serve Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if we really believe spiritual leadership in the home matters, then that should be recognized inside the church as much as anything else. But what I really want us to talk about today, and we're going to get there in a moment, but Brian has been in this role as our children's minister for 3 years, but I first came to know him, and he has been this guy here at Enon and at previous churches. Brian has always been the greatest kids and youth and student volunteer ever. And so I then transitioned from basically serving in the church as a lay leader to a ministerial role. And so we're gonna talk about that in a minute because it was a huge step of faith, such a huge God thing. But let's start off with how you and I met years ago, which was you being a lay leader at a student camp. And so what do you remember about that? Let's kind of start back there with that.
Yeah, I mean, I have always served at every church. You know, everybody has spiritual gift, and mine is just getting in there, getting your hands dirty, serving wherever you can. But I remember at Doublehead Resort up in Town Creek, Alabama.
Yes, in Florence, Tennessee River area. Yep. Beautiful place.
We actually took our men there a couple years ago for a men's retreat. It's a wonderful place. It's right on the river. Tennessee River.
Yeah, I think it's Lake Wilson.
Wilson Lake. So I was serving as a chaperone for my brother-in-law's church at North Park.
Yeah, their student ministry.
Their student ministry was up there for their summer camp, and I said, hey, you know what? If I'm coming, I'm bringing my boat. Yeah. Because I would get up super early.
A lot of teenagers. So this was probably 200 teenagers, you know, student camp for the week. This is a Monday through Friday, all day, every day. You know, service in the morning, service in the evening, huge team rec stuff, you know, games.
Lots of energy.
Yeah, high energy.
Yeah, and when I preface this by saying I'd get up at 2 or 3 to go fishing, I was 20-something years old. I'm not telling a story like it was last week. Like I was 20-something years old.
Yeah.
It was
single
good.
And probably 24, 25 years old.
Yep.
You know, working full time. So single, got a little money.
Yep.
And,
got a boat.
You know, got a boat.
Yeah,
and I'm going to love Jesus.
What better way? I can go fish a little bit. And I know most of y'all that know Zac Reno will find this hard to believe, but he found the guy with a boat and made a friend.
Real
so
quick.
I know what you're thinking. You know, it's hard for Zac to do, but he made a friend. So you were there as the guest speaker. I got invited
to be one of the guest speakers and to help with one of the kind of cabin leaders. I think it was like 10th grade guys or something to spend time with them. And so I get to meet Brian, and he's got his boat. I say something about, man, I wish, boy, I tell you what, this looks like a great place to fish. And he's like, hey, man, I'm doing it every morning. Yeah. And so you and I, that whole week, we got up every morning together, and we would go and fish and catch a bunch of fish, and then we would run in, take a shower, get our guys up, and then we would go camp it up all day.
Camp it up all. We were young, so,
absolutely.
We could do that.
You're like 25. I think I'm like 20. Yeah. Okay, so
you're green.
Neither one of us were married. And so, I think I was engaged.
You were either contemplating it or had just gotten engaged.
I think we had just gotten engaged. Yeah.
So that led to our friendship where, we got to a lot of great outdoor memories.
Yeah.
Through the years. My favorite is still Lake Guntersville that morning. I don't know what the top water hit was, but we found it. And
so all the dudes can engage here, and all the ladies who love to fish. So, if you're a bass fisherman, the most exciting way to catch a bass is to catch one on top water, and it's where you're fishing a lure that stays on top of the water, and they come up and attack it with just aggression and anger.
Yes, it's my favorite.
It's the best. And we linked up after that camp. First off, that camp, it was really neat. So we had a great time together.
Yeah.
But it was also the Lord moved.
Yeah.
Like I remember, that was, I've got, a dozen or so, moments that I've been able to be in where the Lord showed up, and that was one of them. I remember God moving among that group, and so you and I not only connected over interest, but just really in the Lord.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, this is a Christian brother.
Yeah.
And we wasn't living that far from one another. I was serving in a church in Jasper.
Yeah.
It's my first full-time church as a student minister. You were living here in Gardendale, and so we link up after the camp, get together, but we go one morning to Lake Guntersville, and we pull up to this bank, and in about 20 minutes, we had caught. I know the number has grown over the years.
Yeah, it has, and the size has probably grown. But
absolutely.
And I don't have a boat anymore, so I don't mind saying it was the bank to the right of the bridge by the dog food plant.
I don't tell people that.
Right by the dog food plant.
Muskrat.
So,
yeah. But we caught. Probably I would say easily 8 to 10 fish apiece within 20 minutes, and good fish. I mean, 3 pounds plus. And we were hammering them. It was also the day that I lost my first pair of Oakley sunglasses. I'd never bought any sunglasses, and I couldn't be mad about it. We had just caught so many fish that I'd put my sunglasses on top of my head, and we took off, and they went to the bottom of the Tennessee River somewhere.
Some fish has got him a nice pair of Oakleys.
Absolutely.
But that day was probably my favorite day fishing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I've ever had.
So we had that, and we kind of kept in touch vaguely over the years. But then, when you guys ended up moving to this area, you met Amy, got married. I remember showing up at your house one day, and you were telling me, "Hey, man, I just met this girl. I think she's it." You know, and so y'all get married. Kimberly and I get married, and then neither one of us knew that it was in the cards that one day the Lord would have us at the same church together.
Not a chance.
Yeah, and so the Lord calls us here to Enon, and I remember your wife, Amy, was on the pastor search committee that called us here, so which was super neat. Yeah.
And she was very tight-lipped the entire time. She wouldn't tell me anything about when they were talking to you, because when we were first looking, I said, you got to go get Zac Reno. You just got to. And she was like,
because he wanted a fishing buddy, not because I'm a good pastor.
We'll see if he wants to put in a resume, all that. So she was tight-lipped until we had to go, or we went on vacation to Hilton Head one summer. But they were also coming to see you for the first time preach.
Yeah, they were coming to Arkansas.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, babe, you're flying from Hilton Head to I have no idea where.
Yeah.
Like, somebody needs to know
where you're going.
I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to know. I can't have you just blind. And then a couple of days later, we're talking. She's like, hey, and when I get to I said, Arkansas, or are you a pirate? Which one are you? And she said, it's Arkansas, and if you tell anybody, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That from that day on, I was like, man, this is the guy. He's gonna come, and we're gonna do a great job.
We were excited. Obviously, the Lord leading us here. And again, when you talk about tight-lipped, there's no greater professional in this world than Amy Rice. It didn't surprise me one bit at all that she was giving you nothing. Like she could totally do that. I think. Yeah. Shut down, go vaults when she needs to.
Yep, she did, and she just that one little slip up, but it was way towards the end, and it was.
And you were looking at that point. You were waiting for anything.
And I would ask questions to see if I could get her to slip, and you just nothing.
And
I think she was mad at herself. She went that long.
I'm sure.
And then it happened, and then she was just like, you know what? You can't kill anybody.
So we get here, and again, obviously, again, at that point, we hadn't talked in years.
No,
and so
years,
we land, and it was exciting. Out of the gate, I was like, hey, man, we had some relationships, here from years ago, but hey, I've got a buddy in Brian. And so we linked up early on, really just as I was getting a few people together for me that I could say personally invite that would just be prayer partners with me. And you were one of the first guys that I asked to do that. And I remember that when, again, the church was growing and we knew that we needed a full-time children's minister. And the position had been part-time. We were going to go full-time with that. But also, and I told you about that at one point. I said, hey, man, pray for me on this staff stuff. Because that was, obviously building a staff and a team is such a huge part of ministry. And getting the right people in the right place, it's just, especially with the values of who we are. We were really trying to create a staff culture, too, at the same time.
You're right.
And so I remember it was like 3 different positions we were trying to hire. And there was, I would get you to pray about a couple of different ones. And I think we were right in the middle of hiring Micah at that point in an associate music role. And you asked me one day, we're pulling up at the church on Wednesday night, and I was in the middle of that, and you said, hey, man, how's things going with the music minister, associate music minister search? And I was like, man, we're talking to this one guy, I think this may be it. And you said, got any ideas on children's minister? And I'm honestly like halfway joking, and I said, hey, man, listen, I that's on us, honestly, not even on my radar right now. I mean, I'd hire you if you'd want to do it, you know. And you paused.
Yeah.
And looked at me. And again, you were never fishing for that. You were truly just praying for me. Yeah. And I remember you paused and said, well, I would pray about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, hang on now, time out. I said, would you seriously consider that? Because at this point, I mean, you're 40, it was 3 years ago, so how old were you at that
44.
point? 44 years old, have worked at the same company for
19 years,
20 years, in a good situation.
Great situation,
Blessed. I mean, y'all have got teenage kids. You've never went to seminary. I mean, this is like, they're the greatest lay leader. I had zero doubt that you could do the job, but honestly was just surprised, that this was. And so I said, hey, man, I would really like to talk about that, but let's go to lunch.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I wanted to hear from you was, did you feel a call to ministry? Right. Like vocational ministry. Mm-hmm. Obviously, God was using you, and you're a leader, and so all the intangible things that you would need, competency, character, competency, chemistry, you're looking at a staff hire, and all those things I knew would immediately connect. But the biggest part was calling, because it is a unique calling to go to vocational full-time ministry. Yeah. And so we got together, and you told me a story that was so redemptive and such the timing of the Lord. So I'd love for you to share that story about your call to ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll preface by saying, when we were talking in the parking lot that night, and, I was just like, man, I've been serving. I'm vested in this.
Yeah.
Let's find somebody together.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I'm starting running a list. Hey, you want somebody experienced, seminary, all that stuff? He's like, no, man, I want somebody, and if you do it, I'd hire you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, I thought when you said I'll hire you tomorrow, I was going to go home, tell my wife, put my notice in tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then we're going to hit the ground running. I didn't realize, in the Baptist church, things take a little.
Yeah, we got this little process.
We got a lot of committees and process. But now I remember going home that night to Amy, and I didn't want to talk to her like face to face.
Yeah.
I waited till we turned the lights off in the bedroom. Got in bed, and then because I didn't want her to see my emotions and things like that, and I just remember I told her, I said, "Hey, Zach and I had a conversation tonight, and I need you to hear it."
Yeah.
And just went on to tell her about it. And first thing she says, "Brian, you're great with kids. I have no doubt you'll do fantastic at this."
Yeah. Which, by the way, praise the Lord for
a supportive wife that, hey, I've been somewhere 19 years, working very steady.
Yeah.
Comfortable is the word, just comfortable. And I told her, I said, "Hey, babe, it's more than just being great with kids. Mm-hmm. Like, it's leadership. It's getting volunteers. It's having enough eggs for eggs hunts. Yeah. It's all these things that just..."
And even stepping into, like, again, vocationally, I mean, I remember you were intimidated by computers. I mean, again, you do, like, I mean, I'm not trying to be like, to make fun of you or anything, but again, your job before just didn't require you to have to really do that.
I had not touched a computer in probably 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, yeah. So, and obviously, I mean, when you're doing children's ministry and graphics and so much other things, I mean, hey, to be the best kids ministry volunteer, you didn't have to create that stuff. You just had to take it and run with it.
Just had to run. I had to take somebody's vision and make it successful.
Yeah.
And I still remember I couldn't figure out how to right-click on my laptop without a mouse. And I was talking to Donnie one day, and he was like, "Hey, man, try two fingers." And I said, "No." And I just tried, and there it was, popped up right-click. I was just like, I know. I like literally when you say that, I knew nothing about computers. So but to backtrack a little bit, I really spent my high school years at Hilldale Baptist Church in Center Point.
Yeah.
And my sister was there. My now brother-in-law Stephen Hall was there. So we were connected in the youth group at Hilldale. And Stephen and Kelly were a little older, so they had already moved off. And he had asked me to come be a chaperone at the church he was serving in as their student pastor.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anybody there. I had no idea. But I said, absolutely. So we went. It's now it's the one on I-20, World Song.
Yeah, I think I know the church. Yeah.
Now that was a camp that we were at, and so we got back from that camp, and I know when you think chaperone, you're there for the kids.
Yeah.
But man, something hit me there, and I came back.
How old were you at this point?
18,
19,
yeah,
like
maybe, or under 20.
Yeah.
So, I came back, and gosh, it was just like I couldn't shake it. So, I talked to our youth pastor, Donnie Holly, at the time at Hilldale, and finally was like, you know what, I think I'm being called to ministry.
Wow.
But I just was not great at school.
Yeah.
So I didn't know really what to do with that call,
Yeah.
I think I'm still a freshman at Jeff State, and I went there for 6 years.
Yeah.
So, I just didn't know what to do with it if you couldn't go to seminary, if you couldn't complete school, if you couldn't go to seminary.
Yeah, because, again, you rewind the clock 25 years ago, when in Baptist church world or whatever, you get called to ministry.
Yeah.
You announce it to the church, which you did. I mean, you walked through that.
I went up in front and announced it. Yep.
Brian's called to ministry. So, again, God is moving and working in your heart. Your mind immediately then defaulted to, okay, I've got to go to school.
Yeah.
And, again, you struggled academically in some areas. And I remember part of your story was you'd said that you got out of high school, went to Jeff State, did like a half a semester or something.
Yeah. So my parents' deal was always, we will pay for every cent of your college until you fail a class.
Yeah.
Well, that lasted a half a semester, and I was on my own.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Jeff State was only about $300 or $400 a semester back then, so it was just like, I'll pay it, and it'll give me a place to hang out during the day and meet new people.
Yeah.
And I did that for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I did that for a long, long time. But, a couple years ago, you and I started talking after I got called here to possibly, you never made it mandatory I go to school or anything, but I decided and prayed, and Amy and I talked, and I said, I think I'm going to try to get an associate's degree. New Orleans has an extension center down in Birmingham. I can take classes there every Monday.
So let's time out on that for a second. So go back. So you're at Jeff State. You feel this call to ministry, but then you struggle with school.
Yeah.
And so that call just kind of
it just died.
It just
died. Just worldly things.
Yeah.
I will say it's always been kids though. Even when I was in school.
Yeah.
I went to the elementary school to shadow a male teacher there to see about being a teacher. So it's always been a pull to kids.
Yeah.
Whether it's students, kindergarten through fifth grade, something.
Next generation.
I knew it was going to be something of that sort.
So you feel this call to vocational ministry, but school doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And so again, in your heart, you're just kind of like, okay, well, I guess that's over.
Yeah.
So the best thing I can do is go volunteer and serve.
Serve at church. Yep.
You go get a big boy job, and you go get a job. You work. You get married. You start serving and being faithful unto the Lord. But again, that call, it's just dormant, but it's still there.
Yeah, it's there. It's there. Yeah. And I think a lot of my serving comes from that call.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of my way of answering that call with one foot in the water, one foot out of the water kind of things. I could always not do something and be okay.
So I remember, again, your eyes when I said, hey, man, I'd hire you tomorrow. And you were like, hey, man, I'd pray about it. And I then the conversation got serious. And I looked at you and I said, hey, man, would you really seriously consider it? And you started to weep.
Yeah.
And I said, I really would. And I remember when we went to lunch that next day, and that was still, hey, man, I've never been to school. I've never done this. I was like, Brian, praise the Lord for, seminary and these things. But, buddy, just because you don't have a college degree from some seminary doesn't mean that you can't serve the Lord. Yeah. And that doesn't disqualify you. And I remember, man, that was freeing. Yeah. I think that was kind of a freedom moment for you. And so, man, we went through the process, and as soon as we presented you to the church, I mean, the church was 1,000% yes.
They've been super supportive.
Yeah, man, and you've done an incredible job. And I wish I'd tracked this beforehand. But again, how many years has it been now? What's the time frame as far as for you being full-time in this role?
Just over 3 years.
Just over 3 years.
3 years this past March.
Like I know that we've got to be in that amount of time frame close to 100 kids that we've baptized, probably in the children and under your age range, care. And we're running out of classrooms.
Yeah,
we're having to, I guess we're building a next generation building. You've been able to raise up leaders. Hey, man, I just want you to know, and this is really kind of I didn't plan on doing this, but hey, us having this conversation, looking back 3 years later, hey, how faithful has the Lord been?
Yeah, He has. He really has. I'll say I've done none of it. God has done everything. He is the center of it all. Our volunteers are fantastic. I couldn't do not one thing without our volunteers. Yeah. But most importantly, Angela Hardiman has been a rock. Yeah. She really has. Any crazy idea I come up with for a theme night or a camp or anything, she's like, okay, what do you need me to do? Yeah. And I can give her a list of things, and no, I don't have to ask her about it again. Yeah. It's there.
Yeah, Angel's for those who are listening, Angel's our children's associate, and she's just got a heart of gold and loves the Lord, man. So she is just a bright light on our team. Yeah, again, we do have the best staff in the world. Now, again, 20 years doing the same thing. You've got kids. Y'all are secure. You got mortgages. I mean, this is not This is it's one thing to step out in faith at 20, 25. It's another thing to do it at 45, How difficult was that,
It wasn't. I'd love to say I spent sleepless nights wondering how we were going to pay more to how get it. It wasn't. It never, never once. It was never about money, or it was all about ability. Do I have the ability to do this? Yeah. But there was never.
And even the desire part, like God had already, had put that in your heart. That never went away.
From the time our boys were in preschool ministry, we were serving. I mean, it was one of those things that we were going to serve, and it was never something that I laid awake at night. I don't know about Amy, but I never laid awake at night wondering about the money situation or any of that. I was Centos 19 years. I was probably only working 30 hours a week, so I had my route, the way I wanted. I had 5 or 6 weeks vacation. Any of that.
Good.
And the day we talked, I didn't think one second about any of that. Wow. It was like that was not a determinative factor in anything any decision moving forward.
You just truly had that, here I am, Lord.
Just here I am. Yep.
Yeah.
And I remember the day I called you, I butchered the entire conversation. We left it at, hey, you pray about it, I'll pray about it, let's talk tomorrow.
Yeah.
I remember I called you and said, Zach, I was going to try to be real sincere and very deep with it. And I said, Zach, man, I just can't do it. And I meant to say, I just can't not do it.
Yeah.
And I said, I just can't do it. And you were like, silence. And
yeah.
I was like, hang on a second. I didn't mean that.
Oh,
I meant we're in.
Yes,
let's do it.
I remember that. It was about a 5-second pause. I'm like, God, man, because I was getting excited about it.
Yeah.
So
it was.
Tell you, so you go home and we start walking through the process.
Yeah.
Hey, when the Lord calls you, I mean, this is the Lord calling your family.
Yeah.
Talk about that. There was some funny moments in that or whatever. But talk about that. You talking to your kids, to your sons at that point. Yeah, two at that point.
Yeah. I will say about my call, once we talked on the phone, that next week, Mike Hughes and I, another member of our church, were teaching Sunday school for, I think it was 4th and 5th grade boys. And it happened to be my week to teach, and it was all about Genesis 22 and Abraham answering God with, here I am, obediently.
Yeah.
To me, that was the confirmation of what we had talked about and what the call and the levity of the situation was.
Yeah, because we were still kind of praying through it, filling it out.
We were there, but we were wondering how we're going to get this started.
Yeah.
And hearing that and reading that week was like, man, of all the weeks for
that was just the Lord
it's just like,
to give you that word. Yeah. And again, Kimberly and I have had that over the years in calling to ministry. Every place the Lord's ever called, we had a word from the Lord from Scripture, So now, again, what was something you were afraid of before, the academic side of things, I remember you coming to me and saying, again, you were not a year into the job, and you were like, hey, man, I'm going to start going to the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, the Birmingham Extension.
Yeah.
And you walking in and telling your sons, hey, I'm starting over at school. Dad's going back to school,
Yes, and I'll say as soon as I started that process, I had to call Jeff State and get my transcript.
Yeah.
That had academic suspension stamped on the front of it. Yeah. And I had to send that to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And I called a couple days later to start setting things up, and I told the lady, I was like, hey, I'm Brian Rice. I'm just starting the Extension Center. I sent my transcript, Jeff State, and she's like, oh, yeah, I remember that one. And I was like, I bet you do. I bet you don't get that very often. Yeah. But, my boys, Jacob, our now middle, was pretty excited because he was still in the kids' ministry.
Yeah, so Dad's getting to be my children's ministry.
Yeah, Dad's going to be the children's minister. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Older sons, okay, whatever, whatever. He still, to this day, talks about this not being a real job. So he's like, hey, when you quit your real job for this job, so...
As teenage boys do.
As teenage boys. And then when I told him I was going back to school, it was just like... what are you doing, kind of thing. So I actually had my first semester ask Jacob to quiz me at the kitchen table, and I still have a picture of it. I look at it and crack up every once in a while. And when we got done, he said, if you don't make 100, I'm taking your phone. and I said, he has heard that 1,000 times.
Oh, that's
so
great.
he let me know real quick.
Well, hey, man, again, and by the way, just to let Brian is – done it now. You've done several semesters now.
I'm 2 years in.
So you're at 3 semesters you'll be graduated.
Yeah.
And he's done fantastic academically, the best you've ever done.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In school.
Yeah.
And this is not not to knock any other theological deals. I mean, this is a accredited institution. This is a real Bible college. And so God has honored that and has grown you so much. But hey, man, when we stand before the Lord one day, it won't be the easy things that we did for Him that'll matter the most. It'll be the hard things. Yeah. And, hey, you put your yes on the table at not the most convenient time.
Yeah.
And then not only to leave what you knew to go into something scary and unknown, and then to do that even on top of that academically, to be more prepared for it. And man, God has just so honored it and blessed it. And I think, Brian, you are an incredible story of courageously saying, "Here I am, send me," and also redemptively to say, you know, God can restore years maybe of past callings and these things and rebirth dreams. God, it's just a very redemptive story. Yeah. So if you could say something to some of these middle-aged guys right now who are kind of just in the middle of life, that are our age, you know, that are trying now to say, okay, I want my life to really matter for the kingdom, like, but they don't really are afraid to take that next step, like, what would you say to them?
Man, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, I would tell them it's not too late. Like, it's cliche to say it's not too late.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
If God has called you to something, it's clear.
Yeah.
And some of those decisions may not be easy.
Yeah.
But
it's worth it.
They're worth it. Yeah. They are completely worth it. So
Man.
I've enjoyed the last 3 years. You know, I'm working through school. I haven't enjoyed every class,
of course,
but there are some classes I'm like, man, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
Especially my interpreting the Bible class, where Professor Zac
that is
led
true.
us through that class.
So I'm a graduate of did undergrad and then some master's work at New Orleans Extension, at the Birmingham Extension, when I was the youth minister Enon years ago, and so I got to go and teach my first college professor class. I got to be Dr. Reno for a little while, and it was funny that I had my children's minister in my class. So he would always catch me on Monday. We had class on Monday morning at staff meeting. He'd be like, "So how are we going to do on that test today? You know, what do I need to study?" I was like, "Man, I can't let you in."
No, you would not.
I gave you nothing.
It was intimidating. If I failed this class, I mean, my boss. My boss is going to know about it.
You had zero bearing. I told you on the front end, nobody's going to fail this class. You've got to work really hard to fail this class.
But the great thing about New Orleans is it's people like you giving back to younger generation. I say younger. I'm older than you, but younger ministers giving back to them through teaching. It
was fun. I really enjoyed it. When I get to a season of life where our kids are a little bit more grown, a little bit more independent, I think I want to do it again. I'd love to do it again.
It's a lot of fun.
Hey, one last thing, and I'll just we won't go into a lot of detail on this, but so you guys' family have put your yes on the table, not just in doing ministry vocationally. It's also around the same time y'all put your yes on the table for foster care.
Yeah, man. I remember that. I had COVID. So I was away from the family. I was downstairs. It was during that series. We didn't know anything about the stuff, you know. Yeah. And Amy would meet me on the back porch every once in a while, and we would just talk because that's all we could do, outside, talk. And she started talking about foster care. Yeah. And, you know, that's a 10-week, 3 hours, you know, and a commitment every single week.
Just to do the training.
Just for the training, and then they come into your house, and they check things, and you've got to have all this checklist. And I told her, I said, let's do it. You know, my parents had done it. My sister and brother-in-law had done it. I said, let's do it. You know, so 5 kids in our home later, we got to adopt little Jeremiah, and he's...
So, y'all went through 5 kiddos that were in your home. And got baby Jeremiah, came to y'all just a few days old. And this past Sunday on Mother's Day, we got to do baby dedication with Jeremiah Rice, which we lovingly refer to him as Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice, absolutely. Of course. Always will be.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, man, Brian, I'd say there are, sadly, sometimes in ministry, there are those people who approach it as a job. Yeah. And, man, I just praise God that it's never been the case for you and your family, for Amy, for Tanner, for Jacob, and then now for little Jerry. Y'all have put your yes on the table, and man, y'all are such a great asset to our church. But hey, buddy, genuinely, I praise the Lord that I get to work with friends, and that I get to serve alongside friends.
Makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of fun. So, guys, hey, love you, brother. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Porch Talk. Just remember that God is never finished with you yet. So look forward to seeing you again soon.